How great was Avengers Endgame? It was the end of the MCU Infinity Saga, and we got satisfying conclusions to every major character arc of the entire series. Well, every character arc except one. I know I'm not the first one to point this out, but the Hulk story in the MCU wrapped up in a really weird way. After years of watching Bruce Banner struggle for control over his own body with the big green guy, both personas finally found reconciliation, and they merged, creating the Professor Hulk that we see throughout Endgame. But this major character moment, the culmination of Bruce Banner's story, it happens off-screen, between Infinity War and Endgame. For some baffling reason, they never actually put it into the movie. Now, I don't mean to bash Endgame, because it's amazing. It has basically everything you could ask for in a finale. Aside from a handful of jokes that didn't land, this Hulk thing is the only consistently criticized part of the movie. Given how many balls the script had to juggle, the fact that this was the only one that got dropped is a minor miracle. So why do I care about one tiny flaw of a great movie? Why am I making an entire video nitpicking a film that came out 2 years ago? Couple of reasons. For one, I wasn't making YouTube videos 2 years ago. But mainly, what got me so stuck on the whole thing is the justification. Most people, if they thought about this at all, generally seem to think, oh, there was so much other stuff packed into the plot, they didn't have time for it. That's the general consensus, that it would have been great to have in the movie, but there were too many other important things that squeezed it out. It's an understandable conclusion to draw, except it's wrong. There was absolutely room to fit the Hulk's character arc into this movie, and I can prove it. In an act of extraordinary hubris, I will, in this video, attempt to rewrite Avengers Endgame, to add in the necessary Hulk scene to give his story proper closure. And I will do it without adding to the runtime or drastically affecting the story as a whole. Maybe I'm overstepping, saying this as if I know better than the Russo brothers or the hundreds of Marvel bigwigs who constructed this movie with surgical precision. Maybe I have way more confidence in my own writing ability than I should. Maybe I've been watching way too much Nando V movies, but I've had this idea kicking around in my head literally since I saw Endgame in theaters, and I think it's worth sharing. So I'm gonna give it a shot.
Puny God.
First, let's go over where the Hulk is at, character-wise, before Endgame starts. Bruce Banner's first appearances are in The Incredible Hulk, Avengers, and Avengers Age of Ultron. In all three of these movies, he is defined by his conflicting relationship with the other guy, as he calls him, the Hulk. The constant conflict in all three of these movies is that Banner hates transforming into the Hulk, because he loses all control of himself and causes massive damage to enemies and loved ones alike. However, he is constantly forced to transform because the Hulk is the only thing strong enough to stop whatever villain of the day is threatening said loved ones. This culminates in the end of Age of Ultron, where Hulk leaves Earth in a spaceship to get away from his friends so that he can never hurt them again. Hulk's character really deepens in Thor Ragnarok. Here we see that the Hulk has been living on the planet Sakaar, an environment so stressful that the Hulk has been the Hulk for 2 straight years. Instead of being an unstoppable killing machine, this movie features a Hulk that can talk in full sentences and have complex emotions. This is also the first time we get to understand Hulk and Banner as 2 separate entities. We see that the Hulk and Banner each sees the other as a separate person who happens to share the same body. They have different thoughts and opinions, their memories mostly don't overlap, and even though they can't talk to each other directly, they constantly disagree with one another. And a huge key detail. This Hulk is just as reluctant to turn into Banner as Banner is to turn into Hulk.
No Banner, only Hulk!
After this back and forth for most of the movie, Banner is forced to make the same choice as before, transforming into the Hulk to defeat Hela and Fenrir, despite fear that he might finally lose control for good. Then in Infinity War, Hulk gets a serious beatdown from Thanos, and as a result transforms back into Banner. During subsequent fight scenes, Banner is unable to transform.
Come on, Hulk! What are you doing to me? Come out! Come out! Come out!
It's unclear why. I guess it's because Hulk is scared or embarrassed after losing to Thanos, but it's not explored in any detail. In all previous movies, Banner didn't want to become Hulk, but felt that he had to save people. This is the first time that he wants to, but can't. And Thanos ends up winning that fight, and wiping out half the universe, in part because there was no Hulk to stop him.
Because I lost twice. First Hulk lost, then Banner lost. And then we all lost.
No one blamed you, Bruce.
I did.
The tug of war between Hulk and Banner has reached a new stage. During Ragnarok and Infinity War, they've cemented themselves as distinct people fighting for control and autonomy. And Banner has seen the problems Hulk can cause, but he's also seen what can happen when Hulk isn't there. They're poised for a face-off that ends with them learning to share this body instead of fighting all the time. And then in Endgame, we skip right over all of that. When we're reintroduced to Hulk in this movie, he's already reconciled all this. All of his crucial character growth happens off-screen and is explained away with a few throwaway lines.
For years, I've been treating the Hulk like he's some kind of disease, something to get rid of. But then I start looking at him as the cure. 18 months in the gamma lab. I put the brains and the brawn together. And now look at me.
Now we understand what the problem is. We understand what Banner's character arc has been for most of the series. The struggle for control, and the paradox of hating Hulk but needing him at the same time. And we know where he eventually needs to end up, reconciling the two and putting brains and brawn together, so to speak. There's just a huge gap in between the two that the story doesn't properly address. So how do we rewrite Endgame to bridge that gap? And how do we do it without adding to the runtime or disrupting any of the other plot lines? Simple. Banner doesn't become Professor Hulk until halfway through. Under my rewrite, here's how the movie would go. The story stays exactly the same until the diner scene. In the original movie, this is where we're first introduced to Professor Hulk, and Steve recruits him to help create time travel. He explains that he's figured out how to get the Hulk under control, and he talks about it like it's a silver lining to the whole half the universe is dead thing. But in this rewrite, Cap and Co. meet with regular old Bruce Banner. Banner explains that he hasn't transformed into the Hulk in 5 whole years. Whatever issue he had in Infinity War is still present, keeping the Hulk from coming out. But Banner views this as a good thing, a great thing. For the first time in his life, he doesn't have to worry about a monster taking over his body. And since there are no battles to fight, he doesn't have to. This new version of the scene fulfills the exact same purpose as the original. They still ask him to help with their time travel idea, and he still has a personal victory to show off. We'll have to cut the bit where he takes selfies, but that's no big loss, it wasn't funny anyway. The difference here is that this personal victory is a hollow one. It might seem like a good thing, but this other personality that's been tormenting him for so long just up and disappears for 5 whole years? The suppression of the Hulk isn't a win. It's a symptom that something is seriously wrong with him psychologically. In any fiction writing class or any screenwriting book, the first thing you learn about character arcs is the lie the character believes. It's some belief that the character has about themselves or the world that is fundamentally flawed. A typical character arc involves the character realizing that their belief is wrong and changing it. Fortunately for us, Endgame plainly states that lie and its solution. It just doesn't do anything with it.
For years, I've been treating the Hulk like he's some kind of disease, something to get rid of. But then I start looking at him as the cure.
This is the journey Bruce Banner needs to go through in this movie, and what I'll be adding with this rewrite. So moving on to the rest of the first half, really not that much changes. Banner still does all the same things he does as Professor Hulk. Designing the time machine, I see this as an absolute win, planning the heist, traveling to the Battle of New York. None of this has to change. Unfortunately, we lose some of the comedy inherent in giant muscly guy doing normal things, and that's a bummer. But whether this is normal human Banner or Professor Hulk here, it has no bearing on the plot. Even when he goes back in time, it's not to do any fighting. Hulk's mission is to go ask Doctor Strange / the Ancient One for the Time Stone. And here's where the biggest change by far comes in. Banner meeting with the Ancient One. Here's how that scene went originally. Banner asks the Ancient One for the stone, she refuses, and when he makes a move to take it, she astral projects him out of his body. The spirit that comes out of Professor Hulk's body is regular human-looking Banner. Then, while in spirit form, Banner and the Ancient One talk. The Ancient One explains that she can't let the Time Stone go, because if Banner takes it to his reality, it leaves her reality vulnerable. But when Banner mentions that Doctor Strange saw all possible futures and then willingly gave up the Time Stone to Thanos back in Infinity War, the Ancient One realizes that Doctor Strange planned this all out. She gives Banner the stone and makes him promise to bring it back when he's done. In this rewrite, the scene will go a little differently. First thing, all the stuff where Banner needs to convince the Ancient One by explaining Strange's plan, all that has to go. Wait, but we need that, I hear some of you saying. Hulk needs to convince her to give up the stone. She can't just hand it over, no questions asked. To which I say, yes she can. First, she's the Ancient One. She's almost omnipotent. In the original scene as written, she already knows like 90% of what's going on. It's not that much of a stretch to have her also know about Strange's plan from the get-go. We can leave the part where she explains why they have to bring the stones back. We need this info dump so that the end of the movie makes sense. But the rest of it isn't strictly necessary from a plot/logic perspective. But there's another reason why this has to go. Let's talk about the other 5 stones. How do the other Avengers actually get them? When you think about it, the process of actually collecting the stones is really easy. Like, really easy. All the stones are pretty much unguarded, and all our heroes are able to sneak into wherever they need to go and grab them without too much effort. In each of these scenes, the narrative tension isn't coming from their mission of getting the stone. Instead, each Avenger runs into something from the past that challenges them emotionally, which highlights how much they've changed and pushes them to grow a little further. Tony sneaks into S.H.I.E.L.D. to steal the Space Stone without much trouble, but then he runs into his dead dad and gets a chance to reconcile with him. Steve steals the Mind Stone scepter from Hydra, but he has to fight a more naive and single-minded past version of himself. Rocket Raccoon steals the Reality Stone off-screen, while Thor has a tearful conversation with his dead mom and reaffirms that he's still worthy. The Soul Stone is right there for Natasha and Clint to take, it just requires one of them to sacrifice themselves, and they have to fight over which one of them will do it. And Rhodey and Nebula knock out Star-Lord and take the Power Stone, but Nebula gets captured by past Thanos, the evil dad whom she had long since left behind. This whole section of the movie isn't about the stones. They're the MacGuffins that drive the plot forward, but these scenes are driven by emotional character moments. This was a really smart move on Marvel's part. The audience already knew that the good guys would get the stones, because of course they would. It was a foregone conclusion. So the writers found another way to give these scenes an impact. And in the process, they gave the series a victory lap, comparing these heroes to their past selves to highlight how far they've come. The outlier in all of this is Banner. He doesn't do much of anything interesting in this scene with the Ancient One. This scene could have worked with almost any character in his place. That's because Banner doesn't have any more growing to do. He did it all off screen before the movie started. Looking at it through this context, it kind of feels like the Ancient One's hesitancy was added in to give the scene some semblance of conflict. So with all that explanation out of the way, here's what my rewritten version of the scene would look like. Banner, still regular human Banner, goes to the rooftop. He finds the Ancient One, asks for Doctor Strange, you're about 5 years too early, all that's the same. Then Banner looks at the Ancient One's necklace, the one that has the Time Stone. There's an awkward silence as Banner tries to think of a way to ask for it. But the Ancient One says, relax, I know why you're here. Banner is confused. The Ancient One explains that she can see all possible futures, and she knows that Doctor Strange planned for Banner to come in and take the stone. Banner is relieved. It's not stated, but it's implied that he thought he might have to fight to take the stone. After seeing his old self raging in an earlier scene, he was reminded at how scary and dangerous the Hulk is, and he wasn't looking forward to bringing him out. Plus, after such a long time, he wasn't sure if he could even if he wanted to. The Ancient One gives Banner and the audience the explanation of how they need to return all the stones, otherwise her reality is doomed, same as in the original movie. She's about to give Banner the stone, but then she says, hold on, something's not quite right with you. You're out of balance. Banner is immediately defensive. What do you mean? There's nothing wrong with me. I'll just take the stone and get going. He moves to leave, but the Ancient One does her astral projection trick. But out of Banner's body flies 2 spirits, regular Banner and the Hulk. In the past few movies, we've been seeing Banner and Hulk more and more as 2 separate characters in conflict with one another. But since they share a body, they can't ever truly interact with one another. This spirit projection is the perfect excuse to get the 2 of them right next to each other, so they can talk out their problems. At first, both of them are really upset. Banner panics, shouting things like, what did you do? Put me back and put that guy away. Meanwhile, Hulk is furious at being forced out into the open, and he floats away and pouts. The Ancient One says something like, I can't trust the stone to somebody so unsure of who and what they are. You clearly have some issues to work through. I'll leave you to it. Then she steps back and lets them do their thing. Banner and Hulk each throw a few insults back and forth, similar to the kinds of things they said about each other in Thor Ragnarok, but this time to their faces. But this doesn't last long. Their anger fizzles out and Banner asks, "Why did you leave?" Hulk says,
Thanos too strong.
Banner says, "Come on, you've lost fights before. How was that one any different?" Hulk doesn't respond and Banner adds, "What's the real reason you wouldn't come out?" After some hesitation, Hulk says,
Banner hate Hulk. Everyone hate Hulk.
Banner is surprised to see an emotion other than rage in Hulk, and he moves to comfort him. No, that's not true. And he talks to Hulk about all the times he saved lives and used his strength to protect his loved ones. When Hulk still isn't convinced, Banner points out all the friends Hulk has made, his allies in the Avengers, and in particular, his romance with Natasha. This is a fun parallel with the conversations between Thor and Hulk during Ragnarok.
You're Banner's friend.
Don't even like Banner.
No, I don't even like the Hulk. He's all like, smash. I prefer you.
But also, while Banner is convincing Hulk, he's also convincing himself. Eventually, Hulk comes around. He realizes that he's not a monster, and so has Banner. The Ancient One puts them back into their body. There's a flash, and then a big green muscular body sits up. It looks like the Hulk, but then he speaks, and Banner's voice comes out. And now we have our Professor Hulk. He's done it, put brains and brawn together, but here he's earned it emotionally. He takes the time stone and heads back a changed man, or changed Hulk. When everyone returns to the present timeline, there'll be some funny, quippy reactions from everyone else.
Okay, Tiny Dude is big now. He's big now.
But from this point on, everything in the movie is the same.
Big guy, I know we're having some issues here, but if you're gonna appear at any moment, now would be a hell of a good time.
No! Banner only want Hulk for fighting!
So what? You like to fight.
Banner hate Hulk!
I don't hate you. You're more of an Avenger than I am. I love you.
No, you don't! Hulk just wanna live!
I want to live too, man. I want to live too.
Me too!
So let's live. We'll live and let live.
Live and let live!
Yes.
Yes!
Okay, I got an idea.
We worked it out.
In the gamma lab. I put the brains and the brawn together.
And that's all it takes to give the Hulk a full character arc in this movie. These changes give us closure like what we got with all the other main Avengers, but was missing for him. These changes also don't stretch out the runtime any further, since anything added replaced scenes of about equal length. It doesn't interfere with any other plotlines either. And it even saves a bit on the CGI budget, since you wouldn't have to Hulk out Mark Ruffalo for the first half of the movie.
I see this as an absolute win.
This isn't the sort of thing I normally do, rewriting movies. In no way do I think Endgame is bad, nor do I think that I could ever hope to do the Russo brothers' job. But I wanted to give this a shot because it's an idea I had sitting around for a really long time, and I wanted to put it out there. Maybe somebody can use this as a fun alternate headcanon, if they found Endgame's approach to Hulk lacking. Endgame did an awesome job of wrapping up the entire story of the MCU. I just wanted to prove wrong the notion that wrapping up Hulk's story couldn't be done, and find a way to end the Infinity Saga a little more cleanly.